Welcome to Write for Joy. I'm Allie Cross. I'm an author. I should have put it up right in front of me because I really liked what his tagline said on his website. What was it, Brandon? It's author, creator,
Author, creator, dreamer.
dreamer. Okay. I really liked that because a lot of us do have other artistic interests. Like if you're at a conference and you do sort of a random poll of the people around you, you'll often find you've got singers or musicians or artists of all kinds because um, that's what we do. For Brandon, it was drawing and acting and writing. So I love talking to actors because they just have such a neat perspective on the world. So I'm excited to talk to Brandon. He says that he wrote his first book in sixth grade, and it was called Around the World in About a Year. Um, I thought that was really clever, and I'm very impressed you wrote a book in sixth grade. Um, However, even though he thought it was garbage, don't we all think our first works are garbage? He did win a competition. So, what a great start! Like, what a great, wonderful, esteem building start to you as a writer, Brandon. So, I am excited to hear if you rode that high the whole time or if you've suffered the lows that the rest of us mortals do. Um, Brandon lives here in Utah as well, although I have not met him yet. I'm just telling you, Utah is the mecca of writers. And I think the a ginormous population of us live here more than anywhere else, I'm sure. He lives with his wife and daughter, and he loves to hike and travel and be outdoors. And really, of course, he does, because he is a creator and a dreamer. And we need the whole world in order to fuel all of that goodness. So, hi, Brandon. It is so good to meet you. Your bio tells us a little about you, but I would love to hear about you as a writer. What do you write? Are you published? Tell us about yourself that way.
Yeah, I love writing. Yeah, why else would I be here if I didn't? I'm mostly right now into young adult middle grade fantasy. I love that genre because I feel like that's what pulls me out of the world and puts me in a new place, a new situation, a new circumstance that I can just lose myself in. I haven't really been a writer. I didn't ride the high of writing that first book. Um, I wrote that and then that was it for me with writing for a long time. But yeah, the fantasy genre definitely stuck with me. It's what I like to read, so it's what I like to write, and I always wanted to write the stories that I wanted to read, and so that's why I'm doing that. I love keeping a fantasy element in it, but one of my other things that I love to put in all of my writing is redemption arcs and second chances. And I think with fantasy and things like that, it's so much fun to do because you can get really intricate plots. Um, but yeah, outside of fantasy and yeah, the middle grade and the young adult, my wife and I really like to watch Hallmark movies. And interestingly enough, last NaNoWriMo, I decided I'm going to write a romance novel. And I wrote a romance novel and I'm working on that right now too. So that's been a very interesting twist in my life.
Fun. Are you writing it with your wife?
No, she's not into the creative writing. She likes to come up with ideas, but I've talked to her about the idea and we both enjoyed the idea. And
Right.
it's definitely a Hallmark story.
I love it. I also love to watch Hallmark movies. Okay, now I've got to give you an anecdote. So I was watching, it was Christmas time, and I was once again indulging in the new movie a night or whatever it is. Like I was working my way through the movies. And one of my sons, I think he was 17 at the time, walks in behind me and says, "Haven't you seen this movie already?" And I said, "No, it's no, I haven't." And he said, "But isn't it this, this, and this, like the guy, whatever?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, why are you watching it again?" Meanwhile, this whole time he's having this conversation, he is slowly moving into the living room and sitting down, where he proceeds to watch the entire movie with me because romance is so popular for a reason, right? And it's a great place to show that redemption arc in fantasy too. I write fantasy as well, so I totally feel you there. But even for this, 18-year-old guy, and you're a guy, right? Like it used to be sort of taboo to admit that you, as a man, enjoyed these things. But those tropes work for a reason. We all feel desire that happily ever after. And so I think it's awesome. I love Hallmark movies. So I look forward to reading your romance. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. So
It's what
if
I'm
you love
hoping.
Hallmark movies, I know that you like happily ever afters. So let's talk a little bit about, the show's about joy. And I think partly where we find that is in that sort of that satisfying ending, that feeling of alignment, that everything has come together and works out the way it should. In a book, that's easy to see. How do you define joy, first of all? Let's start there. And then I want to know, where do you find it in your writing specifically, but in your life too, because writing is a hard business. Um, how do you keep that going and find that joy and satisfaction in your work?
Yeah, joy for me is, it's interesting because it's something easy and it's something difficult all at the same time. And when you're trying to find joy, whether it be in your own life, whether it be in writing or something that you're trying to achieve, joy can sometimes feel like it makes life unbalanced because joy might be trying to get us to go one place while we're trying to go to another. um, but for me, I think joy is, in an essence, freedom, where I have the ability to do what brings me happiness, to do what I find fulfillment in. And if I'm not, living in such a way that that freedom is being taken away from me, then I'm not feeling the joy that I want to be feeling. And sometimes in life, we definitely get pulled one way or another. We go to places we might not want to be. But for me, yeah, finding that joy is finding the freedom and the ability to do those things that allow me to express myself, that allow me to try and make the world a better place, whether it's through things that I might do with other people, or words that I write in my stories, or something else. Yeah, joy is that freedom and that ability to make the world a better place for me, for everyone that I know and everyone that I associate with.
I love it. So how does that translate? I can already sort of fill in some of the gaps, but how does that translate for you in your writing work?
I think in my writing, I like to take scenarios where things could be difficult and make those scenarios where characters have to make a decision, and sometimes it goes against how they've lived their life before, but they know that things aren't going to be how they want them to be if they continue down the path that they're on. And in life, I think we all go through those situations where we're doing things and we realize at one point, you know what, if I want to get to point B, I can't continue down road A. So I've got to figure out the steps to take to make that happen. And I have a book called The Clandestine Queen, which was um, really the first book that I ever started working on, where the main character, one of the main characters, his name's Laura Vane, and he's a witch hunter, and he's enslaved to a demon, which he doesn't want to be. He wants to be living his own life, but that's not how the cards played out for him. But he realizes and he understands that his life has two roads, road A and road B. Road A is trying to work off his freedom by doing everything that the demon asks him to do. And road B is by living in a way that he doesn't worry about the repercussions of what will happen if he stops listening to the demon. And for all of us in our lives, that those are the base choices that we really have. Am I going to live for somebody else, or am I going to live for myself? And I like the character arcs that come from that when you give them that thought and that option, where they get to make a decision which might not be easy, but it makes the character feel more real to the readers, because the readers are definitely going through that as well. And so I like to think that through my writing, somebody struggling with some type of situation might find some kind of inspiration, or realize, oh, I can do this too. I can make the right choice, even though it might be harder, and find more happiness down the road, instead of staying on the path I am and hoping for change while not changing anything that I'm doing.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like writing has qualified you to be a helper person in real life? That you've solved so many problems that you can solve other people's problems? Do you ever feel like that?
I should, but I feel like I just end up getting myself in more trouble. And
Because real life characters are not quite as agreeable as the written ones, although our written ones do like to misbehave. So I can see where you find joy in creating these stories that fulfill this almost like a calling or need you have to create redemption stories, second chance stories, so that people, real live people can internalize some of that and perhaps be inspired to change or improve their own lives. How about you though? When you sit down to write, do you do you feel that greatness, that potential for greatness, even when you're just having a regular writing session? Or are those moments of joy more something that come more rarely when you're like reaching that culminating phase of your story, or when someone responds favorably? Where does that balance of joy happen, or does it not happen? Is it more heavily balanced to one side?
when it comes to the writing process itself, um, I think I can find those moments of joy in any process of the writing. Um, and that's what makes it so much fun, I think, is because like I can find that moment in just thinking. One of my favorite things about writing is brainstorming, where I'll go for long walks or do something where I just have the time just to work a plot out. And I usually started out with just questions, and it poses new problems and things like that. And then in the thought process, I have those epiphany moments, those aha moments, where, oh, that is so cool. If I could do this and this and this, and then I could do this and this. And I can even find the joy in just those moments, where in those moments it's just for me. It's all about how I want the story to progress. And sometimes I can't find it. And so I have to really reach into myself or external places to figure out, okay, how am I going to solve this problem? If it was me, how would I go about it? And just even in the daydreaming, I can overcome problems and feel a sense of achievement and freedom and joy in that. But then as I'm actually writing the story, and I already know these things, um, writing it definitely presents other opportunities because I'm definitely an outliner. I will outline so much to where I feel like I can't possibly stray. But then as I'm writing, I always stray. And so I end up making new issues and new problems that I then get to work out and feel like, okay, um, I could see this helping somebody. Being in a family, there are always family members who struggle that you try and help. You try and talk through situations, and you always feel that sense of happiness when something works out. Um, and it's the same thing with writing, where I can say, okay, well, what if somebody is struggling with this? What kind of words would I use to help them feel maybe a little bit better about what they're doing, maybe see some progress in their own life rather than feeling stagnant at every turn. And those things definitely help me feel that joy within the whole process. Um, but I think, yeah, the top is when I do hear that, somebody really enjoyed it, or there was something in the story that helped them through a problem that they had.
Yeah. That's really neat. I feel like you expressed it so beautifully that I kind of got lost thinking about myself and whether I allow myself to, because it sounds like you fully engage, like you are completely present when you are. I mean, I know you're human, so, life happens, but I think what I feel from you is this commitment to being present with your story, and I can just imagine what that would feel like and the types of stories that would then come out because you were there and ready to do the hard work and not just toss off a solution to a problem, but to engage in it and converse with it. That's not quite the right word. Interact with it so that you are finding the best solution. What a neat process that is. And I loved how you said that you, even though you have this super strict outline, you're going to stray because the characters come to life a little bit, right? Like we can create them and think of them, but often we're surprised by directions that they go or choices they make.
Which makes writing so much fun. I mean, one of the great things about writing is I think a lot of readers who haven't had much experience in writing don't realize that as we're writing, we're experiencing it all for the first time as well. And I've given myself goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was one book that in the first draft, as I was writing it, I got to the very last chapter, and I know what's going on. The story's ended, and I write this little epilogue for the very ending, and I wrote the very last line. And before I was a paragraph away, I didn't know that was going to happen. And I wrote it, and I'm like, oh, that changes everything. Oh my gosh. And I had to step back because I got to experience the
Yeah.
story in such a fun way for me that, you know, I get to read my stories too, and I get to
Yeah.
enjoy them, and they get to bring me joy because even though you outline, you might know exactly what you're going to do, you can still be surprised and you can still find that enjoyment in your own stories.
Yeah. I love that. I hope that that continues to be your experience as you write more and more books for us to enjoy. And I hope that we can all strive for that. I think, I feel like I've lost my way for a while. I'm trying really hard to get it back. Um, but hearing you speak of it just lights that fire within me and makes me just want to go do it. Thank you so much, Brandon. This was enlightening and inspiring, and I think that I shall go right now. So, excuse me. Thank you for being on the show. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we sign off?
Um, yeah, I like you said in the beginning when we were talking that you like teaching and you like coaching. Um, I love to do that as well. And one of the things that I really enjoy, if there are any writers who are watching or people who want to kind of know the other process of writing, um, when you're writing and you want to get somebody to know your story, you write a query letter and you get it out into the world. Um, that's the one thing I love to teach. And so if listeners are struggling with writing that query letter, because I think you could have an amazing book, but writing a query letter and writing something short can just be so hard. I love teaching that.
That's
Um,
amazing. And I think even if a writer is planning on going on self-publishing, the experience of writing a query letter is powerful and really helps you hone any other copy that you're going to use because it's the same concept of selling your book on your website, on ads you might do, or anywhere that you are online. So I think that the art of the query, while it might be sort of taught in that very specific purpose, I think everyone can benefit from whittling down their story to these to the very basic tropes and what's at stake and everything. So I highly recommend that everyone get into the practice of writing that. So whether you are considering going traditional or not, I hope that our listeners will check out that link to find Brandon and let him guide you through that process because it's very rare to find someone who loves writing query letters. So let a little bit of that joy sprinkle over you so that you can write an awesome query letter and really know what your book is about and how best to sell it. That's a really great topic. So thank you for bringing that up, Brandon. I hope everyone does take advantage and you get so busy with people wanting your help that, no, I don't actually wish that you don't have time to write. No, no, that always has to come first.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for being here. And thank you to everyone who is watching and listening. Um, I get so much pleasure out of doing this show. I hope that you enjoy it as well and feel the heart of these wonderful authors who visit, um, and learn something about them, about yourselves, and about the books they write. And in the meantime, go out and find your joy. Thanks for watching and for listening. Thank you, Brandon, and we'll see you next time.